Hello everyone, welcome back to Story Time. We are currently reading Ninja Nan Strikes Again by Annaliese Matheron, and Annaliese is a local author who has very kindly said that we can read her stories. So, some strange things have already started to happen. I'm not too sure about Aunt Gertrude. How about you? Do you think she's what she seems? I don't know. Let's see if the next chapter will tell us a little bit more. So this is chapter 4 and it is called Benched. Look, Ben. Not everyone is up to something, Nan said as she wagged her finger at him. There aren't criminals waiting behind every lamppost. I know that, Ben said. Well then, stop acting like everyone is bad. You can't go around listening to people's conversations. It's rude, and you can't go around watching them either, Nan continued. But it worked when we stopped Arnold Gillespie, Ben replied. That was different. A one-off, an isolated incident. Grandad and I thought you were grown up enough to know about the NPS and some of the secret things we do. But now I don't know, Ben. I'm starting to think you're too young. What do you mean? Ben asked. Nan sighed. Ben, until you can prove to me that you're mature enough to handle things, you can't help out. What? I'm sorry, Ben. It's for your own good. Until you can show Grandad and I that you can handle things without overreacting, there will be no more missions, no more surveillance centre, no more spying. Got it? Ben was horror-stricken, but he didn't argue. Nan left him to have some personal reflection time. About half an hour later, Ben heard the front door shut. He looked out the window and saw Kieran and Aunt Gertrude getting into Aunt G's car. Maybe they really were just going to buy Nan a new figurine. But then again, Kieran was smiling ear to ear. Ben knew what he had to do. Nan, is it all right if I take a walk around the block? Ben asked. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I think I need a bit of fresh air. OK, Ben, you seem to have calmed down a bit. Just you, me and Grandad for dinner, so we're going to get fish and chips. Grandad's going to pick them up at about 6, so make sure you're back by then. Thanks, Nan, Ben said. He knew the takeaway meal was to make him feel better for being left behind, and he appreciated it. Ben walked out of the back door, into the garden, down the side path and out the back gate to Honeypot Grove. He knew exactly where he was going, and it wouldn't take long to get there, but he'd use the 200 metres or so to swallow his pride. Just down the road from Nan lived Mrs. Gillespie. She too was a spy, and Ben considered Mrs. Gillespie to be his arch enemy. The last time Ben had seen Mrs. Gillespie was shortly after he had helped rescue her from her evil son Arnold and bring down his plans for world domination. Ben thought there had been a kind of truce between the two of them, but that was weeks ago. Who knew how the old bat felt now? Ben opened the small back gate that was flagged by thorny bushes. The "Beware of the Dog" sign clearly clanged lightly on the metal gate, and he was sure he could hear Pixie growling from inside. Ben made his way up the crunchy gravel path, past the skeletons of 2 huge rose bushes that seemed to have thorns for leaves and extra thorns for flowers. Ben reached out a finger and pressed the bell. Instantly, he could hear a loud growling emanating from inside. Then the door opened a crack. "Oh, it's you," Mrs. Gillespie said in her squeaky voice. She removed the chain and opened the door wide. There she stood, Mrs. Gillespie, in all her glory. She was wearing a fetching orange and brown dress, which looked as if someone had thrown up all over her, and stockings that wrinkled around her ankles, resting on top of her slippers. Ben twitched as he looked her up and down. Mrs. Gillespie hadn't changed since the last time Ben had seen her, but somehow she was different. Ben's memory had softened her somewhat, but now the grim reality of Mrs. Gillespie slapped him around the face. Ben could feel himself staring with an open mouth, trying to work out what he was seeing. First, he thought Mrs. Gillespie had been drinking chocolate milk and had forgotten to wipe her mouth. But then it wiggled. Ben thought it was a centipede crawling on her top lip. He raised his hand to point and say something, but in that instant he realised it was her facial hair. Mrs. Gillespie had always had a splattering of hair on her top lip, but after it had been ripped out during her hostage situation in the summer, it had grown back thicker and bushier. Ben lowered his head quickly and saw Pixie, Mrs. Gillespie's pet Yorkshire Terrier, standing between her legs with his gnashes bared and growling. The hair around the dog's muzzle was almost identical to that of his owner. Ben tried to find something else to look at, but he was caught again, this time by the varicose veins that protruded against Mrs. Gillespie's stockings. They looked like big, fat earthworms. Ben gulped. There was nowhere safe to look. He forced himself to look her in the eye, which he managed. Just. Mrs. Gillespie caught Ben in a frosty stare over the top of her glasses. She looked him up and down as if he was something disgusting she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "Well, boy, what do you want?" she squeaked impatiently. Ben squirmed. "Well, it's kind of delicate," he said. If you've come to ask me for advice about girls, you're barking up the wrong tree," Mrs. Gillespie said. Ben was mortified. If he was after that type of advice, which he wasn't, Mrs. Gillespie would be the last person in the world he'd turn to. "I need some help." "Spy help," he said in a low voice. "Well, you had better come in then." "Oh, I wonder what Ben's going to do. Do you think he's going to go and try and spy on his aunt and brother?" I think that's probably what's going to happen. But we'll have to come back again very soon and find out for the next chapter of Ninja Nan Strikes Again by Annaliese Matheron. So I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.